we're very fortunate in Bahrain. And having lived in different parts of the world and seen other people struggle, I was lucky I grew up in central London. But I did on this, and I'll tell you why I feel like a spectator, whether I am or not. I'm not sure. I think sometimes it's better for other people to tell you who you are, because I'm very sure that at least myself and a great many people don't really have a clear picture of who you are. You have a vision, you have a picture of who you are, but it's probably not the reality. Yeah. So anyway, I'll come back to the spectator.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome everybody to another episode of Picking Brains. I'm your host Jabbar or JJ Swar. Today we have Omer. You can introduce yourself. Go ahead.
My name's Omer, and I am a host on Hustle Kitchen. And I've been invited. Thank you so much for inviting me on board. I'm super excited about this. Even the conversation we've been having just before pressing record, I'm like, I'm like, no, we should stop talking. Wait for the podcast.
Yeah, I feel like we shouldn't worry. We don't have to worry about that, because when you find someone like that, you can talk about anything. Yeah. I can talk about like this rug for like an hour and talk about idealism and all that stuff. But I have prepared a few things to talk about, just because I know if we don't have this, we're going to go all over the place. And this is all over the place, but I know where the places are.
Okay, good.
Right?
Good. So one of us can have a plan.
Yes. The first thing I wanted to tackle is your bio and your WhatsApp status message.
Oh, yeah.
It says the strongest force in the world is the power of perspective. Yeah. Do you mind elaborating on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think how to say this in the cleanest way, but effectively, the easiest way I think to attach this is if you can listen to an argument where you've got no horse in the race, and you can hear one side and the other side, and you can form an unbiased opinion effectively, like what doesn't matter to you. One thing that should stand out is just perspective. It's just often the most powerful thing that changes and shapes all of our world and everything and the way we live. It's just the way that some people's perspectives are on issues. It's not anything other than that, and that's what's changed the world and will always change the world, is just perspective.
And yeah, I agree with that. I feel like also that once you become a seeker of truth, you drop a lot of the ego and pride when it comes to these if there's a conflict or you don't have a horse in the race, like you said, or even if you do, right, if your horse is losing, you can accept it rather than so once you become a seeker of truth, if you're wrong, you'll admit you're wrong. There's no shame in that. If you're right, if you believe you're right, you can stay on that course.
You're saying seeker of truth and accepting when you're wrong. I'm actually just listening to a podcast on the guy I was recommending to you, Michael Shermer, and he was saying one of the issues that they're facing in America. I'm reducing an incredibly complex topic down to just a soundbite. But he was saying that people can't accept when they're wrong.
Yeah.
Like the example he was talking about particularly was those who had been misled by Trump, like the billionaire who was going to help the poor person. That was never going to happen. And they were saying, but those people in their heart, they just can't accept they got conned.
Yeah.
And it was like, there's no room for people to accept they're wrong anymore. And it's a weird place to be in today's world where people don't, I don't know, it's the ego, or I think there's the wider arguments there about people. It's not that they just can't accept that they're wrong, but everyone today needs to represent a tribe. So what does your tribe believe in? Does it believe in trans, or does it believe in
gun right, gun control?
Yeah, gun control, or does it believe in global warming? But you essentially, well, not you, but like the yous who believe in this, they need to represent their tribe. And they need to say the things online or in person, whether they fully follow the rhetoric or not, but they need to represent that tribe. And so accepting they're wrong is going against their tribe. And then it's the value that brings. And there was also another lady talking about a very similar topic about the fall of America. I can't remember exactly what they were saying, but she was attributing that a lot of their problems that are facing now with QAnon and things like that are because the death of the family unit and religion has gone away. And she was drawing comparisons and making conclusions, which could be right or wrong. But the point that she was making was interesting because she was coming from a very American point of view. But when you can look at it in life in the Khalij and in Bahrain, where none of those things have gone away, like Friday is a family day. And it's such a beautiful thing, that Friday family day. And that doesn't happen in England. Not really. Not like maybe a few people, but it's not like a countrywide thing. It doesn't happen in America. And those are places that are suffering from these people have lost their tribe. And they're looking for something new to attach. And they might not necessarily agree with some of the lunatics out there, but they're just looking for belonging.
I feel
and we don't have those groups here. Maybe I'm naive, but I don't think we have those kind of groups here spouting off insanity.
There are, but you just have to find them. I feel like it's a double-edged sword because when you have tribalism, you also can introduce a lot of issues. People that don't accept change, they don't accept like that they're on the wrong way. And for instance, in Bahrain, there's a lot of xenophobic kind of or racist kind of undertones, and a lot of people, because of this kind of tribalistic upbringing, it's like my tribe is right, your tribe is wrong, right? And so, and it's not. I don't think they necessarily do that because they want to. I feel like that's the only thing that they know. That once they understand that you can be wrong and you can learn, the tribe doesn't have to be the same way it was a century ago, then we're just not progressing, right? That's when people come out of their shell and remove the blindfold from their eyes.
So it's that same thing. But if you think about it from the point of view, this tribalism, I guess it's been suggested by a great many people, is just a part of being a human. That you just need to find this belonging within and I guess it's, if you did follow the Darwinism view of it, like you're going to be stronger together than you are on your own. You're going to be able to fight off the woolly mammoth.
You'll just die if you don't. If the tribe doesn't agree with you, you're just going to die off.
And if you're not part of the tribe, like your likelihood of being alive and it's a woolly mammoth will kill you, or a tiger or something back then. So it just kind of became, that's the human way to be. So those people, like you said, who are spouting things that maybe are less pleasant, they believe those are reflections of the tribe's views. So it's not me. This is what the tribe says, but I can't disagree with that view. Oh my God. I can't stand out.
I want to say so much about this because I literally was having a talk with my dad yesterday, yesterday, about something very similar to this. I was going to ask though beforehand because he said, when it comes to the Darwinian theory, evolution, it's that if you don't assimilate with the tribe, if you're not favored, you're going to die off. And so it's in your best interest and your survivability is to be with this tribe, and you'll do anything so you can be with this tribe so you can get to eat all the food that they hunt or you hunt with them, right? Does that bother you? I feel like if you think about it if you look at it with scrutiny, so what we're basically saying is this trait that we have is not necessarily because we wanted, it's because we had to have it in order to survive and not die off. So kind of like fake it till you make it. And it's kind of ingrained in us. Does that bother you? I'm
a bit of a spectator on this, and I'll tell you why I feel like a spectator, whether I am or not. I'm not sure. I think sometimes it's better for other people to tell you who you are, because when I'm very sure that at least myself and a great many people don't really have a clear picture of who you are. You have a vision, you have a picture of who you are, but it's probably not the reality. So anyway, so I'll come back to the spectator thing. So I grew up in London in the 80s, and I was the only brown kid, pretty much, other than my siblings, but we didn't go to the same schools.
Okay.
And in our area, we were the only brown people, and majority of the time we were the only brown people. I went to like really good schools, but very small, fancy British schools. But
sorry, I'm too loud. Okay, go ahead.
There were no. I was never part of the tribe.
Yeah,
and growing up, pretty much until like 20, I've never been part of any tribe. And then when I moved over here in my late 20s, I'm not part of this tribe either. And I've never been part of any tribe. So, and I never went to Pakistan, which is where I'm ethnically from. I mean, I have separate views. I don't think Pakistan should really be a thing. I think it should be India only.
Okay.
But that's a whole other thing.
I have no idea about the politics. Well, I cannot give you my opinion because I don't know anything.
I think it's more from a human point of view. It was India.
Okay.
And then it stopped being India, but everyone was all fine when it was India. And now when it stopped being India, everyone started like killing each other. I feel like...
Is this sort of like Israel, Palestine?
No, it's a bit different because like India's an old place.
Yeah.
So when someone... This is what I was talking about, the tribe thing. Like people say, where are you from? Well, I grew up in London.
Yeah.
My parents are from Pakistan. I've never lived there or even been there.
Yeah.
But my heritage is so old, it's actually Indian. And like we can draw my ancestry back quite far. So there's a book on it. Every few years it's updated in who my family is.
I wish we had that.
Yeah, it's really interesting stuff. But so like I'm technically Indian, but with the modern version of who's drawing the map, Pakistan.
Yeah,
but I've no connection to that place, and I have a connection to England where I grew up. I have a connection to here where I spent my formative adult years. But I'm not from any tribe because the amount of people that have had my journey is so small. It's a group of one. So I get to look at this tribal behavior as a voyeur almost. A lot of humans. I've never had relatability as a thing. There was never any content out there made for young brown boys in the 80s.
Yeah.
Now there is, but I'm now a 41-year-old brown man.
You're grown, yeah.
And there's no 41-year-old brown men on content either. So I've always been on the outside. So as I say, how I feel, to return to your question, is how do I feel about that tribalism innate? I can't relate to it in the same way the majority of people can, but I try my best to understand the whys and to not really feel either way about it, more just be like, that's what that is. Yeah. And recognize it. But beyond that, I don't think there's anything that it has for me. Yeah. And a purely selfish point of view, it doesn't offer me anything because I don't have a tribe.
Yeah, for me, like tribalism, as I mentioned before, like it is a double-edged sword for me because you mentioned there are those people who are kind of like ideologues. They are like zealots that will not, they have to represent their tribe. Yeah. And often than not these days, because of the internet, let's say you have an opinion about pro-life or pro-choice, whatever camp.
You know, I'm glad you said that. Sorry, I really want to come back to this pro-life or pro-choice thing. Yes. It's such a beautiful marketing thing that happened there. It's a terrible thing for the horrible people who made it, but it's something we'll come back to.
Yeah, no worries. So like, let's say you're pro-life or you're pro-choice. If you're pro-choice, some person will feel like, okay, because I'm pro-choice, I have to also be anti-gun. I have to also be LGBTQ.
Yeah.
So like I have to have this checklist, and some people will force themselves to believe these things, even if they never had a serious thought about it. And I'm like, why is it not okay for me to be pro-life and pro-gun?
So do you know someone who's forcing themselves into that box?
Yes, I have known many.
Do you?
Yeah.
Have you said exactly what you said just now to them? Because I want to know what the response would be.
They'll always be defensive.
Yeah, but like, what would they say?
I don't really remember, to be honest.
I would like if you do ask them what you just said and say, but I don't get it. Why do you have to be all or none? Like,
why?
Why can't it just be the things you believe?
Yeah, it's almost like I can remove you and replace you with the same person in the same camp, and he's going to reiterate the same arguments verbatim. Yeah, it's like you're almost reading it off of a script. You have never had your own thoughts into this. Like maybe I don't subscribe to this, but I feel like it's because this is what I feel, right? Because you said earlier, people don't want to go against it because it goes against their tribe. Yeah. And I feel like that's a good explanation to this, because people may not necessarily believe it, or maybe they haven't really looked at it with scrutiny because it's easier for them to just be part of the tribe, makes their lives easier. They're staying in this comfort zone.
I like that.
And they feel more comfortable with echo chambers than they can break this, because once you break this echo chamber, a lot of crap can happen to you. If you look at Google, there's a whole article or paper written by one of Google's employees about Google's echo chamber. That's literally the title of the paper.
Oh, wow.
And he talks about all the issues within Google. He got fired for it, and he's been called racist, sexist, whatever, like all these labels thrown at him. But if you actually take the time to read, like, he's making some good points. And so, at least good points or coherent points. I wouldn't say I agree or disagree, but they're coherent.
Yeah.
Right? They make sense. They're logical. They're not fanatic.
And I like your approach to this, that you don't have to agree with everybody.
Yeah.
But it's if you just surround yourself with that echo chamber, man, like it's a weird place to be. I don't understand. I know people do it, but it doesn't make sense to me. I want to hear dissenting views.
Yeah.
I want to hear, oh, you disagree with me? Great. I would love to hear why, because I don't understand why you believe those things. Educate me.
Yeah.
I would love to hear a rational argument to whatever your belief is. Just give me a rational argument that I can say, that's interesting.
And then if we do reach an impasse, we can disagree and still be friends. Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. It's like for me, and as a Muslim, I went to a Christian college. I was telling Omer before the show, went to Christian college, and I met a friend that I admire, and we reached an impasse when it comes to debating religion, who's right and who's wrong. And I said to him this in my last year of college before I left. I told him, whoever's God is right, whatever being is right? I hope that he sees that, or they, whatever. Nowadays with pronouns, I don't know what to say now. But whatever that being, I hope that they see that we both are seeking truth genuinely, that we're not just trying to be zealots and basically debate our position no matter what. There has been a lot of times, and I'll tell you this, his name is Dan Hibishman, shout out to him. I want to have him on the show so badly as well.
You described him to me. I'd be interested to listen to that one.
Yeah. So I was saying, what was I saying? Man, I lose my train of thought so fast. I was saying, so like with him, I told him first year of college, where I knew nothing about my faith, or at least very little, like the essentials. And then I asked him, my first year of college, if you weren't a Christian, what would you be?
Oh, lovely question.
Right. So
it takes a strong mind to answer that in a normal way. No, I'd always be a Christian.
Yeah. You have those.
Yeah.
They're called Calvinists. Anyway, so I asked him, if you weren't a Christian, what would you be? He said, I'd be a deist.
Interesting.
Right. So sort of like, I think Newton was a deist, like watchmaker God. Like there's a God that's there, but he's not interacting with the human race, because there's no other faith I've researched that I'm more convicted or convinced of. Right. Fourth year, I asked him the same question after all our talks. If you weren't a Christian, what would you be? He said, I'd be a Muslim.
Oh, really? Interesting. Based on his interactions with you.
Based on his interactions with me, because he didn't know anything about Islam. Even me, I didn't know. Once I learned how to tackle some philosophical issues and found some answers, or maybe came up with some theories of mine that aren't answered in anywhere in Islam, then he said I would be Muslim. And that's something I love, because there's a lot of people are so hard-headed. Someone like him is so hard to find, because people, they just want to stay no matter what. So I was saying, I hope that whatever God is right, he sees that we were seekers of truth. And then even if I die and I was in the wrong faith, that, I was looking for you. I was looking with all my heart, but I was convinced that this was the truth. I didn't stay with it because my parents were this. Right. And so that's what I believe. And then I found out recently that actually Islam does teach this.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. So
I definitely knew that. Yeah.
It does teach us like a few things that, and I don't want to go too deep into, right? But it's an interesting thing. I told him, like, I messaged him and said, actually, remember that thing I mentioned? There is actually a thing in Islam where if you believe in whatever you believe, if there's a verse that says something, I'm paraphrasing, that if you don't have your not proof, but if you don't have why you believe in this, like you don't have any examples or why you believe in this, right? Then this is where you're gonna, you're wrong. There's no hope for you, right? But if you do bring why you believe what you believe, God will look at it, with mercy and okay, this guy was looking for me, but he wasn't convinced. He didn't get the right information. He didn't meet the right people. He, whatever. And so I'll judge him based on what he knows.
Yeah, I actually had a fairly similar conversation with some religious people recently. I love meeting religious people who can have a clear conversation.
Yes.
So I have many questions.
Yeah. If you want to ask, you can ask. But I love this. I love talking about this. All right. So
sorry, before we move on, there's something you said that I wanted to ask.
Oh, go ahead.
So you said that, how did you describe it? Pro-choice? What was the other one?
Pro-life.
Yeah. Do you...
The naming convention of it?
Yeah. Do you know the proper way to describe it? It's not pro-choice, pro-life. It is formulated that way by some terrible
to separate
but amazing.
People.
No, it's a PR technique.
Okay.
And what they've done is they've turned the argument by naming it cleverly. Because ultimately, I personally believe everyone, you do you. Like, that's the jam.
Yes.
You're a human. Everyone's human.
Do whatever you want.
Just don't hurt anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
very Kant of you.
Yeah, just like you get to do you.
Yeah.
And the pro-choice and pro-life version is just, it's like Goebbels. That was the Hitler's PR dude, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, like
I wish I knew.
Horrible person with what he did, but like talented. He managed to convince a lot of people some insanity.
Oh wait, maybe I've heard of him actually.
Yeah. So it's not pro-choice and pro-life. It's pro-choice and anti-choice. And by naming it pro-life instead of anti-choice, because that's not the opposite. They're not. I mean, the way they say pro-choice and pro-life, it's normally one belief against the other.
Yeah.
But they've framed it in a way that makes you not see. They're saying, I'm pro-choice for, like, a woman should have her own choice.
Yeah.
Or I'm against a woman having her own choice.
Yeah.
And when you put it in the proper framing, like, well, who would be anti-choice? But because they've called it pro-life, that's different. They can have that conversation because we're not talking about destroying the rights of someone else because I say so.
It's more philosophical as well.
Yeah. And it becomes a whole other thing. But if you use its correct terminology, then I think it would give a lot more conversation to what is a very
divisive,
divisive and a serious topic that I really just believe everyone should just you do you, be a nice person, don't hurt anyone, and just be happy and try to offer and create happiness around you, and then we're just all going to be okay.
Yeah, for this, I've always like maintained the same position. I said philosophically, I'm pro-life. Legislatively, you do you, as long as it doesn't affect me. Like if I were president, I haven't thought about this topic very deeply, but if I were president, I would not allow like late term abortion. But other than that, you can do it.
So I studied theology as a younger man, and there is my professor hated me because I would always want to stay after class and debate with him, and he just
I did that all the time in college. By the way, every single time. Go ahead.
Yeah, and he was just like, look, I want to have lunch, leave. And we studied this a little bit, abortion, and he brought forth a argument. I think it's for the Christians. I can't remember which religion has this argument, but someone had written a book about this, and they got their doctorate, and their thing was saying that, what was it? From when you name a baby, it's got a soul. I was like, what? I was like, the slippery slope arguments on this. It becomes a point like I was listening to someone saying how many weeks is a heart or a brain or neurons or something like this. But fundamentally what you're saying is I get to tell you what to do with your body. I just don't see how, if you have a mother or a sister or a daughter, how can you be okay with that? I don't get it. Like, it's not my body. Like, you get to choose. And like, I just think that's the end of the line of the I don't see why imagine someone saying to you tomorrow, I'm going to tell you what to do with your body. Like, what? I wouldn't be okay with that.
I think Dave Chappelle, I don't know if you've seen the stand-up where he talked.
All of his stuff is amazing.
Yeah, he talked about this. I think he made a funny joke. He said, look, if as a father, I don't get a say in what you do with your body, then you don't get a say about like a child's welfare, like money when it comes to it. if you want to choose to have it. I think like that's pretty good.
Oh yeah, but I think the argument that he's making there is America's a very different place. Like they pass laws which show the environment that they're in, and I think we're very fortunate in Bahrain. And having lived in different parts of the world and seen other people struggle, I was lucky. I grew up in central London, but I did voluntary work with young offenders in my youth. Yeah. So I met people and I always heard their stories, and I heard some terrible stories, man. And then I actually worked for the government for a while doing prosecution work, and
like a lawyer basically, but prosecutor.
Yeah, so I trained to be a lawyer. I never found one that I liked good enough to be like, yo, this is me for the rest of my life. Whenever I took a job, I would always have a look at who's in the top of this job. What's their quality of life? How happy are they? What's their family relationship like? What are their passions and things? And I would compare them all. And if everybody just looked fundamentally unhappy, all right, well, if the top of this is just money, but extraordinarily unhappiness, and your health is going away, doesn't feel like me, and then I'd move industry or try a different area of law. So anyway, I met all these people. And
I want to put a pin on this, by the way. I want to talk about this. Go ahead.
Yeah. So here, Bahrain is such a good place to live. Yeah. The quality of life is so high. The safety is so high.
So good.
Yeah, and it's just, you take it for granted. I think people take far too much for granted here, and they don't appreciate what paradise actually is. And nowhere's perfect. Nowhere. If you're going to be like, oh, this isn't happening. Well, you think it's doing better? This is better than most places of the world.
Yeah.
I
used to wonder as a kid, why was I born here? I should have been an American or something like it, because you have Hollywood shoved in your face, right? And then when I grew up, I'm like, thank God I was born here.
Oh my God, right? Yeah, you meet some of these Americans, like, I love to ask people, tell me your life story. I already know mine. I don't need to talk about me. Tell me your journey. And
that's literally what you asked me verbatim before the show.
Yeah.
Tell me your journey.
Yeah. I love it, because you hear some interesting stuff like, okay, what excites you? How do you find your happiness? If I could collect all those stories from people, and maybe I could add that into my experience and my truth and find a better way that for me to live. And that's what I'm always looking for. Like, what secrets have you found in your X many years in this world? What have you've seen more things than I've done. You've seen different things from me, and you've experienced different things. So rather than claim I am the one, I know everything.
Like, no, a fool man says he's wise. A wise man knows he's a fool. Yeah. The day I say I'm wise, the day is the day I know I'm a fool.
Yeah. This stuff's you can get lost. I don't know about you, but I've for some years got lost in thinking too much.
I'm maybe living it right now.
I was about your age. I think I became a nihilist for about 10 years. I was a proper nihilist. Yeah.
10 years? That's a long time to be a nihilist.
I'll give you, do you like thought experiments?
Yes. I love thought experiments.
Oh, good.
But before I get to that, if you don't mind, because I forget, and I've proven it twice so far. The one thing you talk about, like, you see the executives or CEOs, if they're happy or not, that's something I always thought about when it comes to my life, and something, it's like a thought experiment that bothers me.
Go on.
Well, it's not an experiment, it's more of a thought, I would say. If you think about it, every choice you make creates a different path in your life. If I hit this, I've created this path, I chose to choose this path, right?
Yes.
And people talk about multiverse, whatever, that's another thing. But think about it this way. Your life has an infinitesimally large amount of possibilities that you can take. There is that one timeline or one route you can take, one pathway you can take, the succession of actions you take, the way you think, the things you do, that will get you the happiest version of yourself. The richest version of yourself, the happiest version of yourself, right? And not getting to that bothers me, because the likelihood of me getting to that is slim to none. However, you have to think about it this way as well. There are still millions of other pathways. And in those as well, I'm wealthy and happy, right? So all I have to do, I don't have to find the best one. I just have to find one.
See, I think this is a problem of framing. I think you're looking at this as I, as a younger man, did. But I found my truth differently. And I have spent many hours in meditation. I sound like such a hippie.
That's fine, no worry.
But it's true. And it's a better thing than, just going out and being an idiot and being random, which I've spent a long time doing equally. But meditation has helped me to reflect on, what is happy? What truly does being happy mean? Now, is it the destination? Is it that holiday? Is it the way there? Is it both? Is it some? Is it different? But I spend
Is
my
it a chemical?
Is it a chemical? Is it? But I've spent my time in meditation not learning, because I haven't learned. Trying to understand what the feeling of happiness in the different forms of happiness is. And I don't mean from a point of I'm getting a dopamine hit from doing this action. I mean little joys to big joys to sharing. The most valuable thing you can do, in my humble opinion, is share time with someone. Money comes and goes. We're never getting this moment back. It's precious. And if you try to live life, well, I take that back. Not you try. I don't want to lecture people. You do you. I try to live life in a way where I appreciate time and the thing that I'm doing and try to find happiness in whatever that could mean. Because I don't mean I'm walking around gleefully and I'm like, yay, everything's amazing.
Like skipping.
Yeah, you need to know the contrast of things. But if you can appreciate that, that's also happiness. I don't have to, I'm not talking about gleeful. I'm just talking about appreciating the journey for what it is and recognizing those feelings inside yourself. That is happy for me. So if you turn your question and you frame it differently and you can appreciate your journey is happy and you don't fixate on other moments that you don't have and you live in the now, then actually you are, well, I'll let you know as I tell you about it, you are. I have found my way to be happy broadly all the time, even when things are hard. And when I forget that, that's when I get into a place where I'm like, no, I need to meditate again. That's typically my gaps between meditation are, oh crap, I've forgotten to practice this.
Yeah, you're going off the baseline and you have to bring yourself back.
So then I'm like, I'm doing this wrong. And then I'll spend some time meditating, however long that would be, whether it's a week, a day, a month.
That's interesting. I feel like before I used to think of meditation as just sitting in a room, folding your legs and just like humming, right? And then I didn't like that. As I grew up, I realized meditation comes in many forms.
Yes. What do you do for meditation?
For me, as a Muslim, I pray. I feel like that's meditative.
It's very daily. Meditative. Yeah.
And it's daily. And so, and it also gets, like you talked about how being flexible is important, right?
Yeah.
And immediately when you said that earlier, this is before the podcast started, I was thinking, wow, like praying the Islamic way does both. You're going down to the floor and everything, which has scientific benefits, apparently, from what I've seen. But also like it has meditative qualities. And for me, that's my, I guess, primary, but also like lifting in the gym. I find it very cathartic.
Yes.
Right.
It's very good.
Yeah.
It's very good. I used to ascribe. I've lost a lot of weight, but I used to go to the gym a lot.
Yeah. So for me, even when I go to the gym, I find it's just me. I don't like having a partner in the gym. It's just me. And I find that when people, and I said this, I think in the last podcast, if somebody comes with me with some sort of problem, hey, JJ, can you help me with this? I need your opinion. And I don't reply to them. I reply only after I work out. And so usually if it's a very big thing, I mean, like if it's something I can tackle now, I would, right? But if it's something that's big and I don't know what the answer is, I would go to the gym, I would lift, and I would think as I'm lifting. And I feel like my thoughts are like pure. It's like, it's in its purest forms. I can think so specifically, so clearly, and then I send them a voice note of me panting. Right? I'm saying, don't think that I'm sending you this because I don't care and like, oh, I'm at the gym, and it's like I say, like sometimes if people don't know this about me, I'm sending it for the first time, they'll hear me like tired, whatever. I'm saying, don't think because I'm tired right now that I'm not giving your situation a high priority. But I just think when I work out, and I want to say it now before I forget. And if I'm relaxed and everything, I forget what I was thinking. I just say it.
It's very nice that people ask you this type of stuff. I don't think anyone's asking me.
Yeah, it's very rare. It's very rare, especially here. Yeah, but sometimes people having relationship issues or whatever.
Oh, I'm terrible advice for this. I'm more like do what makes you happy.
Yeah. I feel like we didn't even look at this. We're still up top. Yeah. It's okay. You don't
I want to give you this thought experiment.
Yeah.
Because actually,
Go ahead.
Knowing I was coming here today, I actually had some stuff I wanted to ask you because.
To get to know me.
You. Well, yeah, and the fact that you're interested in this stuff is a rarity for me. So there's things I'm gonna ask you too.
Yes, please.
All right, so I've got one thought experiment that it's a bit long, so you have to follow me.
Okay.
Well, not long; it's just a bit weird.
Okay.
And this is something. It starts from a question I got when I was a younger man. I think I was like 11. My brother used to think I was such a weirdo. So, walking home from school, I would look at the trees and leaves, and then I'd wonder to myself, why is a stone a stone? Like, why doesn't a stone stop being a stone and just like be anything else? And there's no real answer to that I found convincing enough. It's just we practice monkey science. We hit a thing, see a reaction. We don't really understand the basis of that. If we did, you could turn anything into anything. So. This is where the origin story is, and it will tie in at the end. So now, when was the last time you used virtual reality?
I have a headset outside.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Which one do you have?
I have the Oculus Rift.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good quality, right?
Yeah, but I get very motion sick. So I don't play it. Yeah.
No.
And here's the thing, though, but they're coming up with new ones that are more clear and everything. So I'm waiting for a better version, so I stop being motion sick.
That, I'm so glad you said that, because that actually falls into the next thing I was about to ask you.
Okay.
So how long has it been since the TV, 100 years? I don't know. I don't know the exact number personally.
I would say maybe like around 80.
80 years.
Yeah.
All right. So in 80 years, we've gone from no TV, well, even if both are wrong, let's say 200 years.
Like a projector.
Yeah. So like, let's say 200 years, there was nothing. And now you've got virtual reality. That was a 200-year timeline progression.
Yes.
That has been pretty rapid.
Yes.
So now let's add 200,000 years onto this being developed more.
Okay.
Do you think it will be indistinguishable from reality? In 200,000 years of millions of pounds, dinars going into the development of this technology. Like you just said, it's getting better at stop motion sick.
Yeah.
This stuff's only a few years old.
Yeah. We're in the alpha phase.
So 200,000 years of development on it. What do you think it'll be like? Indistinguishable from reality?
Yes.
Okay. So at some point in time, I was flippant with my 200,000, but just at some point in time, you're not going to be able to tell.
Yes.
All right. Are you familiar? I know
simulation theory.
Yeah, this is a part of it, but this is my
interpretation.
My thought experiment to the journey of asking a question,
Okay.
and it's not the answer that matters here. It's asking the question, like you were saying earlier. Not everybody is willing to ask the question to themselves.
Yes.
So the actual answer to this, it doesn't matter what you believe. It's the point of being able to go through a journey of asking questions to allow your mind to be open to ask the question. Because if you just said someone, do you believe you're in a matrix? They're like, no. But it's allowing a journey to get there where you can actually understand that there's more to the conversation.
Yes.
Potentially.
Yes.
All right. So now we've said that's going to happen. For sure. It's just when. All right. Now, Schrodinger's cat. Can you tell everyone what's the deal with Schrodinger's cat? What's the theory? Are you familiar with this one?
No.
All right, so I'm going to explain this horribly because I remember things quite badly after I write everything down.
No worries.
So it's an experiment. Essentially, this dude has a cat in a box. The box is closed. And unless you open the box, you don't know if this cat is alive or dead.
Yes.
So it's essentially both alive and dead at the same time.
Yes.
It's in both states.
Yes.
So it both is and isn't.
Yes.
Like the beauty of our universe. I think if one were to say there is a version of God, it's 1 and 0. The contrast, the opposite, it's off and on. Without these things, fundamentally, none of this can make sense to us. It's such a beautiful thing, math.
Can I take back my answer?
Go on.
My answer is way nuanced. I would say no, it's just alive. And I'll give an explanation why. But I'm following your reasoning is correct. Yes. Based on your reasoning and the sequence of logic you're giving me, yes, it's both alive and
Wicked.
dead.
Okay. So now we've said two states can exist
Yes.
at the same time. Virtual reality, definitely going to be a thing where you can't tell. All right. So we've believed in all these steps so far. We followed the logic through just rationally, not whether we're saying I ascribe to that theory. It's just this is reasonable.
Yes.
All right. So now I'm trying to remember the next step so I say this in the right order. So if something is probable, then like the VR, and it's possible. Okay. Now the final question. Prove to me you exist.
Okay. All right. So I knew the trajectory of this. Just heads up.
Good.
First thing that comes to my mind is Cartesian doubt.
Okay, go on.
René Descartes, where he says, "I think, therefore I am."
Yes.
If I forgot the actual explanation that he said that. Let's say that there's a devil that can possess human beings and change the way I think, right? But the fact that we'll assume we're all possessed. But if I were possessed right now, that means if I'm thinking about the fact that I might be possessed, it means I'm not possessed.
True. But that's not the argument, though. The argument is you don't exist.
Okay.
I'm saying from a egocentric, it's only you. So I would have to prove to you that I exist.
Yes.
I can't.
You can't.
I can't.
Yes. There's a name for this also. I forgot the name. I was going to say, if you think about it, nothing exists.
Which is the direction we're going in this thought experiment.
Yes.
And again, it's not whether you believe you're in the matrix or not. It's the journey of the questions. So my next question is, now I need you to picture something you did today. Any action, could be trivial, but something nobody knows you did.
Nobody knows I did?
There was no witness to this.
I brushed my teeth.
No, you can't tell me, so you have to pick something else.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking.
So just think about it and picture it very vividly in your mind.
Okay.
All right. What time did that action happen today? I do need to know that.
I would say 6:25 p.m.
Okay, so 6:25 p.m. Whatever you were doing today, instead of that, I'm going to ask you to imagine something, and I'm only picking this because it's something that everybody does. I'm assuming it's everybody. Have you ever bought bananas or like a burger?
Yes.
You've eaten a burger?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to hope you weren't eating a burger at 6:25.
No.
Okay, good. I now need you to picture at 6:25 today, you were eating a burger, and I need you to really think and see the scene. Sitting down, eating the burger, 6:25.
Okay.
All right. Fundamentally, what is the practical difference between those truths?
That I believe one of them happened.
Other than that?
Fundamentally?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Okay. So now we've walked through a journey of why is a stone a stone? Virtual reality is going to be indistinguishable.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that you believed is true, anything may not be true. And what was the other one? I forgot now. This gets so complicated in my mind. There was one more. I asked you.
Who I am, or do I exist?
Oh, yeah. How do you prove that you exist? You can't.
I can't.
All right.
To you.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. Sorry, I get this confused in my mind sometimes. I don't talk about this stuff very often.
No worries.
All right. So now, imagine, that 200,000 year mark, that virtual reality?
Yes.
All right. Now, this is the crescendo. How do you know you're not there?
Yeah, that's the simulation theory.
Yeah.
So the simulation theory, I wrote a paper on it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Can I read it? Send it to me.
If I have it, because I did it for college.
Yeah, send it to me.
I don't know if I have it. We'll see. So the argument of the simulation theory, it's by Nick Bostrom. He said, he proposed in the beginning of his paper, this is in 2003, I think. He proposed one of three arguments must be correct. I'll give you an example. If a car accident happens, it either happened intentionally or accidentally. There's no third option. One of them has to be true, right? All right. Or the person who caused it, I mean. So he says, I'm remembering this very vaguely. Human beings get to a point, or actually, I think he says human beings will never get the ability to create these simulations ever. Like we will never get to the point where in 200,000 years we create an indistinguishable VR from real life. That's A. B, he says we do get to a point where we can, but we choose not to do it. And 3, we live in a simulation, meaning that we do get to into a point where we can't do it. And if that's the case, then the likelihood of us being the first ones to do it is slim to none. That's the argument.
Yes.
Now, this is my answer to this, right? You have to make assumptions to this. The first assumption is consciousness. You're assuming that you can recreate consciousness when we can't even define what consciousness is. Some people say it's, I don't know if you have heard the term qualia.
No.
Qualia is how we perceive information given by our senses. That when we drive a car, we see a red light, we distinguish that means stop. Only human beings can do this, apparently. Right? It's something that only human beings can distinguish the senses, the signals we get from our senses, and understand the nuance in it, the sophistication in this. So I can never answer it. My answer would be, I think we're at A, that we will never get to the point where we get to do VR. Even though you asked me 200,000 years, I still maybe. This is assuming the world doesn't go to crap, right?
Yeah.
That's one. Also, the problem of consciousness. I might be able to create a simulation in which objects feel real, but I can never recreate consciousness if I don't know what consciousness is.
That's very interesting. So I'm taking what you've said, and I've got 2 parts that I'd like to ask on this. It's very interesting talking to you.
Same here, likewise.
The thought experiment I walked you through as a journey to the simulation theory, given that you've written a paper on simulation theory, I'm interested. How differently have I told my version of how you examine the topic? I
think you put it beautifully. It's very close to, because when you read the actual paper, there's a lot of math in it as well. There's like a formula and stuff like that. And the thing makes assumptions, right? And I can see where the gap is from your explanation to his. He made an assumption that we can recreate human consciousness, that the consciousness is just signals in the brain. If I cut off all of your limbs, if I cut your limb, like let's say your arm, are you still Omer? Yes. Does that mean you're 2% less Omer? No. I would still think you're Omer.
You know, scientists recently did experiments on worms, and they're talking about where memories are stored and test experiments to do with consciousness. Did you read about these?
I'm assuming that they cut off a part of it and then remove some of their memory.
The opposite. So they cut off its head, and when it grew a head, it still remembered tasks.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
There's also like this one. This is an ocean of things we can talk about. I was just going back real quick. I think you put it beautifully. The gap is, so he made an assumption, which I think is assumption you cannot make.
I think, that assumption is also a core part of what I've spent 25 years working through the basis of recreating consciousness in programming. And you're a programmer, so I'm going to walk you through a couple of my humanistic laws, and I'm going to hope you're going to tell me I'm wrong, so then I can spend the next 20 years refining it better. So I have 41 humanistic laws where millions and billions are being spent on robotics to make the hardware, right? But like the interface, how it really operates to a person or from a virtual reality. By the way, do you know Mark Zuckerberg is renaming Facebook next week?
Yes.
To Metaverse?
To the parent company, right?
Yeah, because he owns the planet, so he wants to own the digital planet by building the digital planet.
And I've heard like people are doing NFTs with this, like with a planet where you can own digital land and then trade it. It's crazy.
Yeah, so he wants to own the next reality, which is cool. Anyway, which brings me on to my humanistic laws. So I find, like us as humans, it's not one thing dictates everything. It's a very complicated network mesh, and how these laws interact with each other define the consciousness. So just like us, we're going to say, you as a computer software engineer, I need you to write me a program where you say, let's say the hard drive of this computer, everything gets saved in it, it degrades over time.
Yes.
And by varying amounts, not a constant.
Okay.
And we're just going to put some, and I know there's no truly random. You can't program random, it doesn't exist. So you're going to put some rules behind it, but what those rules are don't matter because we don't know at the pace our brain degrades a memory. So again, it's immaterial that it's not truly random. So memory degrades over time, rule one. Now, we're going to look at some other things. We'll look at friendship as our first one. I like to say this one because broadly, we've all experienced friendship. So it's something we can attach to.
I hope so.
I really truly I hope so. Friendship is, maybe it's important. It's hard to say. I think it's important.
Depends on the type of friendship.
Yeah.
If it's a real, true friendship, then it's very important.
Yeah, it offers value.
Yes.
Yeah. But again, that comes down to the whole questions like, why should it matter anyway? But then if I fall into nihilistic tendencies.
I was just going to say, you're going back to your nihilistic self.
Yeah, the nihilistic tendencies are very strong. So friendship. Now we're going to say, I've just met you today.
Which is true.
Which is true. If I poured a hot cup of tea on you, you'd be like, that wasn't wonderful. So you're going to have this scorecard across all manner of things that you've experienced. Like a baby hasn't experienced anything, so it's got no scorecard. It's trained its scorecard. Here's good, here's bad. And who's it's trained by? It's trained by audio, by being told what's up. Good behavior, bad behavior. It's reinforced, positive reinforcement. And again, environment. Parents.
I know where you're going with this, by the way.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Good, because you're going to see as a programmer, this is all very possible to do.
It is possible, but there's going to be one missing element that you're not going to be able to recreate.
Okay, good. This is why I'm going down this journey with you, so you can tell me where I'm wrong and what I'm missing. So we can do all of this stuff, and we're building up scorecards.
Yes.
So I've gone through 41 of different behavioral traits that when mixed together, things, AI, being friends, that's just one part of friendship. But why even strike up a conversation? Relatability, all of these human traits. I'm actually looking for a university at the moment. I want to do a PhD in psychology.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because I want to take this to the next level. But yeah, so what's the thing that I'm missing?
All right, so basically, from what I'm understanding, is when you give this AI this complex network of traits that humans have, it'll be human, indistinguishable from human,
indistinguishable,
right? It won't be
Turing
human.
test,
exactly. Yeah, Turing test, yeah. So I would say that there's two things. First, from a pragmatic, because if I say it's going to miss a soul, I can't really prove to you that a soul exists, right? Which I believe in souls.
Okay.
Yes.
But when you say you believe in souls, let's examine that further. You believe, one way to break that down from a more programmatical view, and I'm just thinking out loud here, is A, believes in souls. Practical effect of that is says to other people, there is a thing that is important to the fundamental being alive, the situation, the status in which is described as alive. I'm saying that's important as a soul. I must believe in this. Defining it is a quality that brings all of your humanistic laws together. Without these, you can't have a soul. Without being able to explain them to someone to any level of degree. So you need to be able to have a rational argument and put forward about believing there is a soul from a programmatical point of view, because no one can say what a soul is.
Yes.
If you met someone tomorrow who just said the same thing, I believe in the soul, what's the difference?
I think I can give you my
Go on.
definition of a soul.
Go on.
Or at least my idea, and I've thought that this. You said there's no such thing as random, right?
Yes. Well, I mean, that you can't program random. I think there is such a thing as random, but I don't think you can program it.
I believe that there's no such thing as random.
Oh, really?
That means if I have... So, for instance, if I program a set of conditions for the computer, and I always keep the same conditions, the same variables, the result will always be the same.
Yes.
If I change the variable, the result will change.
Yes.
Think of it if the entire world has millions and billions and billions and billions of these complex variables.
Yes.
If I have control over every single one and I run a simulation of the world, we will be having this conversation right now with the exact same words I'm saying.
Yes.
Right?
There's a series about this at the moment called Foundation. Are you watching it?
No.
Yeah, it's about basically some dude does a math formula that predicts everything.
Yeah. So assuming this is just assuming this, I don't think we'll ever get that, but assuming that you can have all these variables, your actions are not random. It's you were supposed to be born this time, and the thing that happened to you at this moment of your childhood affects your long term this way. This thing that happened to you is going to affect your short term this way, and you're going to make actions based on this, and therefore there's no personhood in you. You're just
I understand the argument, but you've also argued against that point.
Yes. So I argue against it. What makes it different?
Yes.
Now, if I rerun the simulation, so what a scientist or a skeptic would say,
Yes.
About this is predestination, right? This is predestination, basically what I'm summarizing. What proponent of predestination would say, if he ran his life again with the same variables, he'll do the same exact actions, exactly to the T. I'm saying what the soul is that if I redo the simulation, there'll be some changes, some minute changes in your actions.
Absolutely.
Some nuance. That's what the soul is.
But that's what I'm proposing my humanistic laws, because it evolves based on interaction. Mm-hmm. And you can't recreate everything to be in the exact same way, because it's just not possible. I mean, really, it starts to get a bit wobbly in my head, this stuff.
Yes.
So what was the other thing other than soul?
Before we get into that, I want to reply to that, right? So in this program that we make, you cannot program real randomness. So you will never know if there's a soul. Because if you do rerun the simulation, there might be a little bit of change, but because you reran the RNG, the random number generator, right? You reran it, and that's why there's a little bit of nuance in the AI's action. But so then you're saying that the RNG is the soul.
Yeah, but so that's my randomness only comes into the degradation of memory. So you know the friendship thing. I forgot to actually finish this. The reason why the degradation of memory matters is, so you know if I spilt that tea on you, not cool, and your scorecard. Now, in order to top up memory, we're going to say it's oral re-verification. So I say to you, hey, bro, wasn't it a great time that we had last night when we did X, Y, Z? That's now re-topping up that memory. And I'm only wanting to top up memories from things that I've got good ticks on my scorecard. For whatever reason, I've made my own scorecard, if it's social or whatever, my tribalism, doesn't make a difference. But I've got my scorecard, and I'm re-topping up those memories by talking about them. Isn't that very close to what people do? They call each other
pictures, right? They look at pictures, they remember the good pictures.
Yeah. But you're re-verifying to yourself
that it's happened.
Yes. And you're not verifying terrible things. You're verifying good things with people you want, and that's the basis of friendship.
Yes.
You have to mix in a bunch of the other laws as well.
Obviously, yeah.
But that's essentially programmable friendship.
Yes. Now the second thing I was going to mention, we talked about this in computer ethics. There are some problems that don't have solutions. There's one called does P equal NP, which is one question. There's a whole nother can of worms. But there's one thing that you can never answer is, if you run a program, can you tell when it's going to stop? Unless you program it to stop in a certain way. If you don't, there's no way you can know. It's literally you cannot solve this problem. That if you will never know when the program is going to start. Yes. It could go for 1,000,000 years. If considering nothing goes to crap, you can never know when it's going to stop.
Yes.
It's not.
How do you know when a human's going to stop? It's physical hardware is what stops it.
Yes.
Which will be the same thing. I want to connect my AI into physical hardware. That the AI actually has to sell. Like, you know how you're going to the gym because you're trying to maintain your hardware. You want to be healthier, live longer, be fitter, be happier. These are all very programmable things. Look after your limbs, robot. Don't let them break off. Why? Because it's in your own self-interest.
Yeah.
And those in your tribe affect those around you. You should go to the gym. It's good for you. I'm doing it too. Be like me. You build in relatability algorithms.
Yeah.
Build in empathy, ambition. I've got them all written down. I'll show you actually later. So 41 of these that if you program them all, we'll pass the Turing test.
Yes. All right, if you can program it. I don't know. As a programmer, I have to look at this list.
Yes. But what I've described so far isn't crazy stuff.
It's not crazy, no. Yeah. I think we're close to that. I mean, somewhat. I was going to go back to the whole VR thing.
Yes.
I want to tell you that my thought about this. We're basically VR headsets. We are. So if you think about it, does this really exist, right? So the way we process information is we have these 5 senses.
Yeah.
These 5 senses, when they're triggered, they send a signal to your brain that I feel this thing here, right? Or that's like the eyes, for example. What the eyes do is they take the light rays.
Yeah.
The brain interprets as light rays and creates a simulation in your brain.
Yeah.
That this is what it looks like. Yeah. Does this really look like this? I don't know.
And I'm colorblind.
Really?
Yeah.
What kind?
I can't, when things are like a type of red-green,
okay,
but like dominant colors.
Yes.
Whatever the dominant color is, it's like camouflage works perfectly on me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, is your green the same as my green? Is your red the same as my red?
Because I grew up, I say, without a tribe and colorblind. I've been on the outside of a lot of this stuff. I just see the world differently. So like it plagues me. Like, what am I seeing compared to everyone else? Because I know it's not the same.
Even people who aren't colorblind, are their red the same as my red? I mean, there's a spectrum we can look at, but still, like, does the spectrum look the same for me to them? If I'm doing all these things, if I'm touching, looking, I'm just basically getting just a lot of sets of data instantaneously. My brain is processing, creating computer imagery in my brain right now.
Yes.
Does this look exactly the way I'm looking at it right now? I don't know.
Absolutely.
It could be a little bit more defined. There could be a little more crevice here. I don't know. Right. So then we get to the problem of idealism. Does anything exist? Do we see anything exist? People, when you ask them the question, and there's people that's fake woke people that I don't want to rant too much, but there's people that think that they're having these simulating conversations and they think they're smart when they talk to their friends. Hey, man, but they don't know. So I'll give you an example. When you ask someone, does a tree make a sound? If nobody's around and a tree, if it falls down, does it make a sound? People are like, of course it makes a sound. What is a sound? A sound doesn't become a sound until there's an observer there to take those waves. They have to hit your eardrum, and then the sound is produced by your brain. Is there sound? Depends. If you mean the waves, maybe yes, but the waves don't become sound until they have an observer. Then we go to a different. So people, when they don't understand this example, they still don't get it. I ask them this, right? Say a book. Does the book have value on its own, or does it have value when you read it?
Very interesting.
Right? If there's no observer to read this book, it doesn't have value, or does it? That's the question.
I think this is also what my bio thing comes down to. It's down to perspective.
Yeah.
There's another reason why that whole perspective comes in. Like, does a book have value? Depends on your perspective. Does this thing exist? Depends on your perspective. Just like the thing I said to you earlier. Imagine the thing you were doing, committing a burger. Well, what's real? What's not? What does real even mean?
Are you curious what I was thinking of? I was taking a shower.
Taking a shower. So it's a wonderful thing that the mind, and I think that's the I drove myself crazy with these thoughts for many years. I think the best outlook I've ever had with it is just to be aware of now and try to understand what brings happiness to you and those around you. And beyond that, there's not really much more you can do. And if there is more you can do, then do it.
Do it. Yeah. It's crazy. I have these thoughts all the time. For instance, like going back to the whole, we're just VR is just
you were saying this. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, If there's no observer, how do you know you exist? If you go to sleep, do you exist? Well, you exist if your brother comes in and observes you and he tells you, hey, yeah, I recorded you. The camera's an observer. Here, you exist, right?
It's very Schrodinger's cat, yeah.
Yeah, right? That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. This is why I said no. A cat does exist and only exist, right? And I'll tell you why. Are there stuff behind me? You're observing. There's a wall behind me. I can't notice it's there until I look at it, right? And so it doesn't exist for me.
Yes.
The way Dan and I, we talked about this, right? And he said, this is why everything does exist, even if I go to sleep. Why? Because God is the ultimate observer.
Oh, that's nice. That's a nice way of saying it.
Yeah. So he's always observing. So even when you go to sleep, you're there. That's how, for instance, like babies don't really get to understand object permanence at a young age. Like when you show them a card and you make the card disappear, they get what happened. The concept of object permanence is still not developed yet. That part of the brain. That's why magic works well with kids. By the way, that's because of this, right? And so, but you translate this idea of object permanence. Object permanence is a thing because God is observing. That's what we concluded, him and I. It doesn't mean it's true.
Yes.
Right. That's also. What was I going to say? I want to talk about a million things. So like object permanence, I talked about God being the ultimate observer, and that's why I said with a cat, when you close the lid, it's only exists because God is observing it inside.
Oh, okay. Now I see. Yeah, I see your argument now.
Yeah.
So if you've got if you take that as your view, then I guess that would be right.
Yeah.
But I say the problem is it's so easy to default. Well, my problem is that it's so easy to default to nihilism as the answer behind all of these things. Say, well, observing what? Why does any of it matter? I mean, you're ascribing God an argument. I'm not saying that this is true. I'm saying an argument could be made that to say that God is observing is you're pushing your own view that this has to matter. There is meaning in something where there is no meaning, and you're only deriving that meaning because it gives more reality to what you're perceiving now.
Yes, that's a valid response. To me, I think it's not only that. If you're asking me personally, because I know you're just saying that to the example of a person, right? So
yeah, it's more that it's better to hear all sides of an argument to even consider taking a view. So I'd rather not just I really like the way you put it across. And it's given me time. Well, it will give me time to reflect on the words that you're using. But at the same time, it's just I like to explore all sides of it because that is part of my happiness.
That's what I like to do. That's the truth-seeking path, right? If I'm seeking truth, but I only stick with the first thing I believe in, I'm not really seeking truth because I've never heard of the alternatives. And for me, the way I seek truth and the way I counter nihilism is inference to the best explanation. That's what science does. If you think about science, so all science does, it makes assumptions based on the best explanation we have until we move to the next. The atom looked like the Jimmy Neutron logo. It looked like that in the early 20th century, and then we're like, nope, the atom doesn't look like that. And only like a few years ago, we're like, wait, our current version of the atom is actually wrong. It's a little bit different. Even recently, after we thought we developed all this irrefutable model of the atom, turned out to be wrong. So it's always inference to the best explanation. For me, I'm a very scientific person. There's a lot of people that think theology and science don't mix. If you believe in God, when you ask someone, why don't you believe in God or something like that, it's because I believe in science.
People say that.
Oh, you never heard that? Oh.
I mean, I've heard people on TV say it. No, I've never had someone to my face say it.
I swear to God, I've met people that are like that. I'm like, and I tell them, why do you think they're mutually exclusive?
Yeah, I don't get it. Why would they? I mean, or to say it in such an obvious manner. That's what you can have that belief, but to suggest that's the only belief seems strong. That's how I was hearing it when you said it.
That demeanor, right? They have that demeanor. I was gonna say, for me, I was a scientific person first. So for me, when I had that kind of gap in my life when it comes to faith and religion, when I went to America, I didn't know much about God. The way I resubscribed fully to the concept of God is through science in the first place. Hyde Park.
Oh, yes. I grew up around the corner from there.
I was going to ask you if you ever went there.
Yeah, this is the park I'd go to as a kid.
Yeah, so
I watched like 1 minute away.
Yeah, so I watched a lot of content that's on Hyde Park to understand the truth, or not the truth, but people's explanations about things. The way I think of it is the way I summarize my belief in God without bringing in religion, just science, is I look at the best explanation for me. So are you curious about?
Tell me.
Yeah, so I was gonna say I don't want to give any unsolicited, just like, hey, listen to me preach to you about God. No, but for me, the first step is that we observe the universe is constantly expanding. How we observe that, I don't know if people are curious, but you have celestial objects. As time moves on, that they keep moving away from each other. That means reversibly, if you go back in time, that they're getting closer to each other. And if it keeps going back to each other, it can't do that infinitely, right? And therefore, there had to be a big bang, whatever. So that's the best explanation we have as to how the universe started, right? That's the one I'm using. If there's I've heard of alternatives, but they're unscientific in the sense that science only can take observations and make assumptions. If you cannot take observations, you cannot make the assumptions. So when people talk about multiverse theory, in order for you to make that observation, other than philosophically, I'm talking scientifically, you have to leave our universe and observe that there's another universe. You physically cannot do that. Therefore, it's unscientific, but it doesn't mean it's not a plausible theory philosophically. So that scientifically, that's the best explanation. Then I go to law of thermodynamics, or the cause of effect, and the law of conservation of energy. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, right? And so if the universe is finite, right, and if it had a beginning, something must have created it, right? Because energy cannot be created or destroyed, but we're finite, so it had to be created at one point. And then, so I label that thing that made the universe the creator. I don't call him God yet. That's not me yet. I'm not God.
Yeah, I tell you.
No, I don't have a God complex, guys. Anyway, so then you have a creator. And then the creator, people are like, okay, what created that creator? You have that issue, right, of infinite regression. Where I'll give an example that I like to use. If you were a soldier in the military, you were a sniper rifle, you had a sniper rifle and you were the sniper. If you need permission from your superior to take the shot, and he needs permission from his superior to take the shot, and we go back infinitely with this chain, will he ever take the shot?
Infinitely?
Infinitely. If he keeps asking,
infinitely, you're always taking the shot and never taking the shot. You're both.
No. So before I take the shot.
So before
I take the shot.
Okay. Well.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to finish. Okay. So because some of the things you're saying,
yes,
I love the argument.
Yes,
but it depends on how you experience time. Your core structure is there. Time is flowing in one direction. If that's an assumption, or not assumption, that's one way of considering it.
You're saying like time is not linear, right?
I'm saying we are experiencing time linearly. That does not matter. That mean everything is experiencing it the same way we happen to in this physical form.
That's why I said inference to the best explanation.
Yes.
There could be a better explanation, but since we're experiencing it that way,
yes, okay,
that's the assumption we can make.
Yeah, and so but that's the point where it gets a bit wobbly for me, because we experience and talk about time in this linear way, but it doesn't necessarily mean it. Like you said, the atom, that just is the best explanation.
Yes.
And it's just easiest for us to explain time as a linear, but I don't think it is.
But think about it this way. These assumptions we made, they have to be pretty darn close, because look at the innovation we made through science. Medicine and all that, right? If we keep thinking, oh, there could be this might not be the truth, or very close to the truth, we will never have been innovative. Yeah, I think
I take your argument, but if you look at the recent breakthrough on the RNA for the COVID stuff,
yes,
the way that we, as I say, we do monkey science on the whole. Hit a thing, break a thing, see a reaction, empirical. It's all very scientific. But what they did was different. They are telling your body to change how it reacts, not injecting you with the bit of the virus to get better. It's different. It's programming your body to react. So you're saying if we didn't do things this way, then innovation, no, I think it's just we've all been, not all been, classrooms are made to build robots and factory workers. They're not a place for smart people. It's made to make money. So if we fundamentally change where value is given, is there a financial reward on the whole for you to examine these thoughts? No. But is there a financial reward for you to sell people junk food that's not good for them?
Yes.
Yeah. So as a society, we are not incentivizing innovation in spaces that will create the innovation that will open these other topics, because there's no reward for it.
What if they're not? What if they cannot be opened?
Oh, we'll never know.
What if, for instance, right, we're trapped in the third dimension? Let's say there's a fourth dimension.
Yeah.
Logically, it's impossible for us to transcend.
I mean, why do you say that?
Because, okay, this is why.
Because you don't know what that fourth dimension is.
The thing is, yeah.
It's just like I was giving that thing earlier. Press on your arm and that feeling of your thing, and then recreate that thing in your mind. Yeah. Until I'd asked you to do that, you'd never done that. That could be the fourth dimension, could be the way you consider it.
Yeah, I'm saying, well, yeah. So what I mean is, if you don't know what the fourth dimension is, how can you tell you're in the fourth dimension?
Yeah. And that will take some very sensible people to spend a lot of time thinking about experiments that rediscover the shape of an atom, that will find the new boundaries. But as a society, we don't really value these things.
Yeah, but oh my God.
Especially in this region, it was the birth of math. By the way, if there ever was a God and that numbers math. Have you ever done a thought experiment? Like you were given a computer that could make reality, make a universe, but it's a clean slate. It's literally nothing. So you have to make the first rule that governs reality. What would it be?
Well, what would be the world?
The rule. Not the world. Yeah, not complex stuff like making a world. That's complicated. I'm talking about a core logic, reason, rational, anything.
Before we get into that, I want to ask you a question because it'll tie to this. This is a very small thought experiment.
Go on.
Prove to me that logic is a reasonable thing to use to come up with explanations for things.
I don't think it is.
Well, you're wrong. I'll tell you why. And it's not me trying to be... Because you're using logic.
Yes, I know. And it's a circular statement. Yeah, it's a circular statement. But it's I love those circular statements because you can sit there and you can just... There's moments where I use golf to meditate as well as sitting and doing yoga. And you can just explore these without having to really... You travel. I don't know if you feel that way, but when you're exploring these in your mind, you're almost going to another place and you just can enjoy the argument with yourself because there's no real...
happens to be in the shower.
You know, there was someone who was talking about that. There's something happens in your brain why you get ideas in the shower, but there's some science behind it.
I think it's because if you think about like white noise help people sleep, right?
Yeah, something
like the sound of the shower.
I believe it's something related to that. So yeah, what was your thing? Prove to me why logic
is like a reasonable thing to use, as a reasonable tool to use to make assumptions or come up with the truth. Basically,
prove to me. Okay, I love how you frame such a circular thing that your only way out is to use logic as the argument.
Yes,
the only perceived way out. So I would say, prove to me. Well, I would say again, my best argument to that is just down to perception. What's your perception of what logic is? What's your definition of what logic is?
There's like
no, but that's using logic.
It's using logic. Yeah,
it's such a nice thing. Leave that one with me.
Great.
That's going to be with me some time now.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
No, I love your thought experiments. So if I could give one for you gave me a lot for my arsenal now. So.
Yeah, this is such a beautiful. If anyone is, sorry, I keep whoever's listening, please put on the comments. Let's argue about this.
The two of you are watching.
I'm gonna put in the comment. I'm so glad we were talking about earlier. This is gonna live on YouTube. So these thought experiments sit with me for like 20, 30 years. And every so often when I think about this, I'm gonna go back on YouTube and I'm gonna write something like, here's my latest view.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like a journal.
Let's debate
or
this.
You don't have to do that. You just have to come back for another episode.
Yeah, but absolutely. But like for now, for 30 years, I'm going to debate with you this thought experiment because it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so circular. Oh,
it is.
So nice. And then that brings the question of why is it nice? Why does it matter? Why is it beautiful? Oh, so good. So good.
I feel like for me, I tend to, what is happening outside? I told him. Okay, great, because I can hear. I have open back headphones.
Okay.
I can hear them. Hopefully, their noise doesn't bleed into the microphones. Man, I can't wait to live on my own. Anyway, so I was gonna say that I forgot. What did you say last thing? The YouTube. Yeah.
No, before that. Right before that.
I was gonna say there's a fine line for me. There's a fine line between. If I keep thinking, what if there's another explanation? This is like the route of radical skepticism for me.
Yeah.
Which is something I avoid. Because if I can't make assumptions and deductions, okay, there doesn't need to be an answer as to why logic is a tool I can use. I just have to accept it that's my default. That's it. Sort of like René Descartes with the Cartesian doubt. I think, therefore I am. Like I could always think why I can't exist and why that person exists, but there has to be a default point where I start. Otherwise, I will never have existed in the first place. I would not be here.
You reminded me. So you had never existed in the first place. So what's the rule you're making? You've got the ability now. You've got a fancy computer, and it can make a universe.
Yes.
But there's that pre-Big Bang state you're in.
Yes.
But you have to give it the first programming line that gives it a rule by which it operates.
That's what I was going to say. Like the rule I will have to give it is based on my experience on Earth.
So what is that rule? And I'm just making you answer a question, having given like 30 seconds to think about it, for a question I've spent 10 years thinking about.
Yes. It's crazy. Is it like a rule for humans?
No.
Just a rule?
Just a rule.
I don't know. What is yours? Let me hear yours.